Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into fascinating topics, taking your sources and unearthing the most important nuggets of knowledge.
It's great to be diving in.
So, have you ever wished you could tell an epic story, maybe immerse yourself in a really vivid world, or even just document a personal journey, but, without needing a game master or even other players?
Yeah, that's a common dream for a lot of creative folks, I think.
Totally. Imagine a system that empowers you to be the sole architect and, well, the sole audience of your own narrative.
It's a truly profound concept, really. It allows for this deeply personal and creatively unbounded storytelling experience. Puts you firmly in the driver's seat.
That's a powerful thought, isn't it? Today, we're embarking on a really unique deep dive into the world of solo journaling games.
Ah, yes. A fascinating niche.
Specifically, we're focusing on an adaptation of the acclaimed Mythic role-playing system.
Right.
As it's presented in the Mythic as a Solo Journaling Game article from Mythic Magazine Volume 30.
A really interesting take on Mythic.
For those maybe not familiar, the Mythic system is pretty well known for its Game Master emulator, the GME.
Which basically acts like your invisible storyteller.
Right.
Answering questions, throwing in twists.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive, what are we aiming for?
Well, our mission is to thoroughly unpack the core mechanics and, honestly, the immense creative possibilities of this innovative solo play style.
Okay.
We'll explore precisely how you can set up your own immersive journaling adventure.
Right.
We'll also need to understand the unique ways the Mythic system's familiar tools, things people might already know, are kind of twisted for this specific purpose.
Twisted, I like that.
Yeah, and crucially, see how a complex narrative organically unfolds through a series of thoughtful prompts in your own journal entries.
So by the end of our conversation, you listening should have a really clear understanding of how to use this system to unlock your own storytelling potential.
Hopefully transforming simple ideas into rich, detailed personal sagas.
Yeah.
Entirely your own.
Entirely your own. Love it. So how do we begin to unpack this? Where do we start?
I think the best place to start is by clearly defining what solo journaling play actually is.
Good idea.
And maybe, importantly, how it stands apart from what many people might already know as Oracle-style solo RPGs.
Even those using the Mythic GME itself.
Especially those.
Yeah.
Yeah. They both empower solo play, definitely, but they do it in fundamentally different ways.
Okay, so lay it out for us. What's the core difference?
That's a critical distinction. Traditional Oracle play, like with the standard Mythic GME, it really zeroes in on answering very specific, often yes-no questions. Binary stuff.
Right, like asking the Oracle, is there a guard at the door?
Exactly. Or do I find the hidden key? It's about building a detailed adventure incrementally, often kind of emulating a game master's spontaneous decisions.
So you're constantly asking questions to generate specific plot points, immediate events, getting those granular details as you go.
Precisely. Think of it like a rapid-fire Q&A session with an unseen entity guiding your immediate actions. What's right here, right now?
Okay, I see. So if Oracle play is like that rapid-fire Q&A focused on the immediate, the granular, how does solo journaling achieve its story progression without those constant binary answers?
That's a great question, and really comes down to a fundamental shift in emphasis.
Okay.
With solo journaling games, instead of those binary questions, the system primarily relies on open-ended prompts.
Ah, prompts, like essay questions instead of multiple choice.
That's a decent analogy, yeah. The focus isn't on random, granular detail generation so much. It's more on shaping a broader narrative arc and exploring the big picture of your story.
So less what's in the drawer and more.
More like, what significant challenge did I face this week in my quest? Or how did my character's perspective change after that event? It encourages a more reflective, expansive narrative flow.
What's fascinating here, though, is that despite these differences, the Q&A versus the open prompts, both styles share a crucial reliance on what the article calls context and interpretation.
Absolutely crucial.
This seems to be where the magic happens for the player, right? Where the abstract rules translate into a living story that feels uniquely yours.
Indeed. The core insight here is this iterative loop. It transforms your adventure from just, a series of events into a living, breathing narrative organism.
Okay, break down that loop.
The article lays out this continuous cycle. You start with a given context, what you already know about the situation, the world, your character.
Right, the setup.
That context naturally guides your expectations for what might happen next in your story, what seems likely, what feels right.
Makes sense.
Then You interpret the results you get from the prompts in journaling or the oracle rolls in GME play, those surprising twists Mythic throws at you, and you use that interpretation to build more context.
Ah, so the answer adds to what you know.
Exactly. This growing context, in turn, fuels even more expectations, leading to this continuous, evolving narrative cycle that carries you throughout the entire adventure. Every interpretation you make becomes the context for the next interpretation. It reads this truly emergent story you probably couldn't have planned out entirely in advance.
So it's not about throwing out everything you know about Mythic if you've used it before.
Not at all.
It's more like a unique application of its existing mechanics. That makes a lot of sense.
Precisely. The article explicitly states that while it's an adaptation, familiar components are all there. Things like scenes, those narrative chunks you play through. Fate questions, which are your core yes-no oracle when you need them. Random events, bringing those unexpected twists.
Lists, too. Threads and characters.
Yep, lists for tracking threads and characters. And the chaos factor, which subtly influences how wild or unpredictable your story gets. They're all present.
Okay, but there's a twist.
Yes, the crucial point is that each of these mechanics is used with a slight twist, as the article puts it.
And that twist is key.
It's key to making the system work effectively for journaling. It tailors these robust tools for a different kind of solo experience, one that really values that broad narrative development over generating minute details constantly.
So you'll recognize the pieces.
But how they fit together creates something distinctly new. It's quite clever.
And that leads us perfectly into the sort of philosophical underpinnings of this approach and the creative freedom it offers you, the player.
Right.
The author stresses right from the start that this isn't presented as like the only way or the definitive best way to solo journal.
Definitely not. It's not dogma.
It's positioned more as a starting point.
Exactly. It's intended as a starting point of inspiration, is the phrase used. Something for you to customize and fashion your own take on solo journaling.
So it invites creative modification right from the get-go.
Absolutely. It encourages you to adapt the system to your personal preferences and the specific narrative you want to explore. It acknowledges that solo play is an inherently personal journey.
And your engagement is paramount.
Totally. You can bend the rules, change the prompts, invent your own interpretations if you feel it enhances your experience. The system trusts your creative judgment.
What's remarkable, and you touched on this, is that unlike a standard Mythic game, which often gives more structured answers, this journaling system grants you immense creative control. That's a direct quote.
It really does.
While the prompt categories you create will provide guidelines and the meaning tables offer initial context.
The rest of the narrative expansion and interpretation is entirely up to you.
So you're not just reacting.
No, you're not just reacting to random dice rolls. You're actively shaping the story's direction, weaving in your own ideas, your own embellishments.
It's like being the director, screenwriter, and star of your own movie all at once.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
You have the freedom to take an idea and just run with it for as long as it excites you.
And this ties into that principle the article mentions. Lean into the narrative. What does that mean in practice?
The profound insight of lean into the narrative is that it invites you to become more than just a player. You become the co-creator and, well, the sole audience of your own evolving saga.
So it's more than just a suggestion.
Oh yeah, it's an encouragement for deep engagement. You're not merely answering prompts like it's a chore or a simple factual query.
You're using them as springboards.
Exactly. Springboards to explore ideas, to delve into descriptions, to flesh out your character's internal world, their thoughts, their feelings.
The article emphasizes that the more you put into these kinds of adventures, the more you will get out of them.
Right. It means fully embellishing descriptions, really exploring character thoughts and emotions, and just running with intriguing ideas for as long as they captivate you.
It doesn't mean writing chapters for every single prompt, though.
No, not at all. But it does mean allowing your creativity to flow freely, letting the story breathe and grow as you explore it, much like an author truly inhabiting their fictional world.
And finally, a huge part of this whole experience is the journal itself.
The physical or digital journal, yeah.
The author stresses its immersive and personal nature. It's not just a simple record-keeping device.
No, it's an integral part of the experience. You can include notes, little thoughts that pop into your head, drawings, maps, anything that occurs to you as the story unfolds.
So it becomes a personal artifact, a living document.
Precisely, a living document of your unique journey. By the adventure's end, your journal becomes this tangible record of what you experience with your player character, a testament to the story you've collaboratively created with the system.
It's your story, in your own words. That's a powerful thing.
It really is.
Okay, so having grasped the why of solo journaling, the creative freedom, the personal narrative, the next natural question is how you actually begin your own epic tale.
Right. Where do you start the practical steps?
Exactly. That starts with your premise and goal, and then understanding how you'll track your progress through something called resources.
The foundations.
Yeah. So, the premise. That's your narrative setup, establishing who your player character, PC, is, and what the adventure world is like.
Doesn't have to be super long either.
No, it can be as brief or detailed as you like, apparently, but it needs to convey your place within the world.
The article gives some fantastic examples that immediately spark the imagination.
Like what?
Like, you are a sorcerer attempting to perfect the magical formula for immortality. Simple, clear motivation.
Oh, classic.
Or, you are a shipwrecked survivor washed up on an island where you must survive and explore the wonders of the place. Very evocative.
Survival and mystery. Nice.
And for something maybe a bit grander, you are a colonist on an alien world where you must tame the elements and build a settlement for others who will follow after you.
Wow, okay. Those are concise, but they immediately give you a strong starting point, don't they?
Exactly. A clear picture and a sense of purpose.
And complementing the premise is establishing your goal.
The main objective.
Yeah, the primary objective your PC is striving to accomplish in this adventure. And often the goal will be quite obvious from the premise itself, right?
Absolutely. For the sorcerer, the goal is clearly discovering immortality.
For the survivor.
Probably building a boat and escaping the island, or maybe just finding a way to signal for help.
And the colonist.
Preparing the planet for future colonization, making it safe, building infrastructure. It gives your narrative a clear direction and a sense of purpose, a target for your journey.
What's really interesting is how incredibly streamlined player character creation is in this system.
Oh yeah, it's super simple.
The article explicitly states it's standalone, meaning you don't typically integrate it with another RPG's character rules or complex stat blocks.
No need for pages of stats.
TC creation is wonderfully simple. Decide who and what you are. That's it.
That's literally it.
No need for detailed statistics, extensive skill lists, or elaborate traits. Your PC is primarily defined by their interaction with the adventure world.
And how you interpret things during play. It's about essence over mechanics, letting your imagination fill in the rest as you go.
The source gives a practical example that shows this perfectly.
The zombie apocalypse one.
Yeah. I play a survivor in a zombie apocalypse. I used to be a graphic designer for a music label.
And that's good enough. The important thing is that you know who you are playing and where you stand in the world you are building.
From there, your character's capabilities and personality just emerge through the context and your expectations as you play.
Right.
And one clever innovation here is how you can even use Mythic's core tools, the random tables, to inspire your premise and goal.
Yeah, you don't have to come up with everything from scratch if you're stuck. It can give you that creative spark right from the start.
The source provides a really detailed example of this creative process, walking through the steps.
Right. Imagine a player ready for a journaling adventure, but totally open to any concept.
Okay.
They start by rolling on the adventure tone elements meaning table and get random and tension.
Random and tension. Okay, what does that mean?
They interpret this to mean that this will be a thriller-style adventure with lots of unknown elements. Sets an immediate mood. Right?
Yeah, suspenseful.
Then, to figure out who their character is, they roll on the character identity elements meaning table. They get explorer and scientist.
Explorer and scientist. Interesting combo.
The player interprets this to mean their PC is someone highly skilled, science-oriented, and tasked with exploration.
Okay, so scientific explorer. But exploring what?
Good question. To figure out what's actually going on in this adventure, the player rolls on the action meaning tables and gets expose and environment.
Expose and environment.
This all leads to a rich combined interpretation that forms their premise.
Yeah.
My character is a scientist traveling to a distant alien world to explore it.
Oh, okay.
Humans recently discovered alien technology on the moon, a gateway to instantly travel to other worlds. The gateway is ancient and very low on power, so explorers must be sent alone with a minimum of equipment.
Wow, that adds stakes immediately. Alone, minimum equipment.
Nothing is known of this new world. It is likely full of surprises and mystery. Boom. Premise set.
And this naturally leads to their resulting goal.
Yep. My goal is to learn enough about the world to determine if it is safe for people to colonize.
That's brilliant. It shows a concrete, step-by-step process for generating a really rich premise and goal just from simple, random rolls.
Exactly. It shows how the system helps spark creativity even before the journaling truly begins. It's a testament to the power of structured randomness in fueling narrative.
So once you have that narrative foundation set, the premise, the goal, the character concept, the next vital step is how you actually make progress, how you track your character's journey.
That's where resources come in.
Resources. Okay,
Yeah.
This is a numerical value.
Yeah. Typically, it starts at 2, and the ultimate objective is usually to reach 7 to conclude your adventure, though you can adjust that target number if you want.
And it abstractly represents your PC's progress toward their goal.
Exactly. Abstractly. Resources are incredibly flexible in their interpretation. They can mean just about anything vital to your goal.
So for our scientists explore,
Resources might be knowledge about the alien world. Each significant detail you learn could be a point of resource.
and the shipwreck survivor.
Resources could represent the tools, supplies, maybe information you need to build that boat and escape the island. Each plank found, each edible plant identified.
What about a different genre, like a murder mystery?
Resources could simply represent clues you gather during your investigation. Each key piece of evidence, each revealing interview.
That adaptability seems really key. It allows the system to fit a wide range of narratives, always reflecting forward momentum towards your ultimate objective.
Precisely. And you can track resources in 2 main ways, abstractly or specifically.
Oh, okay. What's the difference?
Abstractly, you just keep a numerical value. For instance, our scientist exploring the planet learns about a previous alien civilization, discovers ancient ruins, encounters a potentially intelligent native animal. These discoveries might just be abstracted in your resource points as simply a value of 4. It's simple, efficient, keeps the bookkeeping minimal.
But you can get more detail.
You can. The article notes that if you want to, you can specifically list each individual resource.
So the scientist's player might list?
Something like, mapped out immediate area of the planet, limited atmospheric sampling, discovery of ancient alien ruins, and potentially intelligent animal. Each one is a distinct point.
What are the pros and cons of doing it that way?
Well, listing resources as specific elements requires a bit more bookkeeping, obviously.
Right.
But it also lends your adventure more flavor and helps record your exact progress more tangibly. And crucially, it aids interpretation later on, especially when resources are lost.
Oh, okay. How so?
The system brilliantly allows you to narratively explain a loss. Imagine if our scientists were required to lose a resource while exploring a cave, and they had limited atmospheric sampling listed as one of their resources. They could interpret its loss as discovering new, alarming samples deep in the cave that drew the original samples into question.
Ooh, interesting. So it's not just a number going down. It's a specific, impactful setback integrated into the story.
Exactly. It makes the loss feel earned and meaningful.
And to help you stay organized throughout this process, the article mentions a worksheet.
Yeah, a solo journaling worksheet. It's a handy tool designed to help you record your adventure title, premise, goal, PC summary.
Keep track of resource points, both the number and the specific list if you're using that.
Right. Manage your chaos factor, list your prompt categories, and note your chosen consequences. All in one place.
And it's available as a printable or form-fillable PDF.
Yep, super easy to use and helps you keep everything in order so you can just focus on the narrative.
Okay, great. So with those foundational elements in place, premise, goal, resources sorted, we move into the real heart of the play, crafting and using prompt categories.
This is where you really start shaping the story actively.
These categories are described as the basis of most scenes and your primary tool for shaping your developing narrative.
Essentially, yeah. They are open-ended questions that you will answer in your journal, guiding your creative output for each scene.
How many do you need?
You need enough categories so that they cover the most important aspects of the adventure you want to explore, but not so many that it becomes a chore to answer them all in every scene.
What's the recommended range?
The recommendation is no less than 2 categories and no more than 6. Although the author thinks 3 or 4 categories is probably the sweet spot, the ideal number.
And crucially, each category should be something you're genuinely interested in, something you would enjoy answering.
Absolutely key. This ensures your personal engagement. This is where your unique story truly begins to take shape based on what you find interesting about the premise.
The article provides some excellent illustrative examples of how these prompt categories work for different premises, showing their versatility.
They really do. For that medieval sorcerer trying to become immortal, prompts might be things like, What item or ingredient must I gather? What danger do I face? How does this quest affect my mundane life? And maybe what must I sacrifice in this process?
Ooh, I like that last one. Really highlights the high reward, high risk nature of that journey.
Definitely. Or for the Victorian-era shipwreck survivor on the uncharted island.
What would their prompts look like?
Maybe. What do I do to help myself survive today? What peril does the island throw at me this time? Or how do I take action to escape the island? Very focused on the core challenges.
Makes sense. And what about the person who inherited the wizard's mansion?
Their prompts could be, what spell am I working on? What happens and what do I do about it when my magic goes wrong?
Yeah.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And maybe, who knows about what I'm doing and how do they react? Adding some social or external pressure.
Each set clearly guides the narrative towards the core themes and central questions of that particular adventure. It demonstrates how powerful simple questions can be when tailored correctly.
Which brings us to what the article calls the art of prompt creation. Because your wording, how you phrase these questions, directly dictates the adventure's challenge level and its narrative path. It's quite profound.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, remember, the scientist explorer's prompts, they included, what troubles do I encounter? What wonders do I find? And how did I solve a problem?
Right.
That third prompt specifically focuses on how the PC is proceeding with their work, which is likely where most headway toward the goal will be made. But notice the wording.
How did I solve a problem? Not necessarily, how did I make progress on the goal?
Exactly. A prompt like, in what way do I make progress toward my goal, almost guarantees that each scene will push you towards the end goal. It makes the adventure inherently easier.
But as the article points out, do you really want it to be that easy?
Right. By wording the prompt as, how did I solve a problem? The player has created an opportunity for the prompt to be about achieving the goal, but not necessarily so.
So you might end up solving a problem that has nothing to do with the main goal, like fixing your equipment or dealing with a minor annoyance.
Precisely. It adds complexity and opportunities for more organic progress, or even tangents. This creates dynamic tension and a more nuanced narrative that keeps things surprising. It feels more like real life sometimes.
And here's a critical point you mentioned earlier. These aren't static prompts you set once and forget.
No. Definitely not set in stone.
The author emphasizes that these are dynamic prompts. Your vision for the game might change as it unfolds, right?
Totally. So if at any point you realize a prompt category can be worded better, or maybe it's just not interesting anymore, or even needs to be eliminated altogether, don't hesitate to do so.
And you can add new ones too?
Absolutely. You can add new prompts entirely if the story evolves in a new direction. But the advice is to only do this if you feel it would enhance the adventure.
Because changing the prompts has a major impact on the course of the game.
Exactly. It allows for true adaptation as the narrative unfolds, but you should do it thoughtfully.
Okay. With your narrative tools, crafted those dynamic prompts, and your framework in place, you're almost ready to play.
Almost there.
The last bit of setup required is to have your mythic lists ready and record the chaos factor.
Right, the bookkeeping basics. Lists in this system function pretty much as they do in normal Mythic. You've got a threads list for ongoing plot lines.
And a characters list for individuals, groups, concepts, anything that might influence your story.
Before you begin play, you put your main goal on the threads list. That's essential.
And maybe add any other threads that seem logical from the premise.
Yeah, exactly. Do the same with the characters list. Include any elements that make sense given the premise and goal. Who or what is already important in this world.
The source gives an example for the scientist explorer, right? Before they start exploring.
Yep. For threads, they add learn about the world, which is their primary goal.
Makes sense.
They also decide to add discover helpful resources, since it makes sense the explorer might need to find supplies on the planet.
Practical. And for characters.
On the characters list, they include the planet itself to account for things the world might do, like weather, animals acting up, geological events.
That's clever, treating the environment as a character.
And they also add headquarters to account for their bosses back on Earth, opening the possibility of receiving messages, new orders, maybe even pressure.
So these lists become dynamic tools as the story progresses, growing and changing.
Absolutely.
Now, the chaos factor, CF, you mentioned it works differently here.
Yeah, the mechanics have a distinct adjustment specifically for journaling. In regular Mythic, CF usually tracks the ebb and flow of player character control and success, influencing how often random events pop up.
Right. Higher CF means more chaos, more unexpected stuff.
But this solo journaling system is designed more to promote the player character, achieving their goal, maybe at a more measured pace. So the chaos factor works more in a release valve mode here.
A release valve. How so?
It influences how often expected versus unexpected types of scenes occur, rather than just raw chaos.
Okay. How does that work mechanically?
You start the adventure with the chaos factor set at 5, the default middle ground.
Standard mythic start.
Right. But here's the twist. At the end of an expected scene, the normal scenes where you answer your prompts, you increase the chaos factor by +1.
Okay, so normal progress makes things potentially more unpredictable later.
Sort of. But for altered or interrupt scenes, the unexpected ones, you lower the chaos factor by -1 at the end of the scene.
Ah, so experiencing something unexpected makes the next scene more likely to be, well, expected.
Exactly. It creates this self-regulating rhythm, and like standard mythic rules, the chaos factor cannot drop lower than 1 or rise higher than 9.
So it stays within that familiar range.
Yep, this distinct adjustment sets the pacing for the journaling system, allowing for a natural fluctuation in narrative predictability, keeping you on your toes without necessarily overwhelming you.
Okay, so when you actually begin playing a scene, you don't need to come up with an expected scene idea beforehand, like you might in regular Mythic.
Nope. In this system, the expectation is simply answering the prompt categories you came up with before play. That's your scene structure right there.
But you still roll against the chaos factor.
Yes, you still have to test that expectation against the chaos factor. You roll a d10 at the start of each scene.
And the results.
If you roll over the chaos factor, you get the expected scene you proceed with answering your prompts.
Okay.
If you roll equal to or less than the CF, and the number rolled is odd, then the scene is altered. We'll get to what that means.
And if it's equal to or less than CF, but even,
then the scene is an interrupt. Again, a different procedure, just like normal mythic scene determination, but leading to different types of journaling scenes.
Got it. So let's deep dive into the expected scene first. That seems like the most common one.
Right. So you've rolled above the CF. You start with your first prompt category.
Okay.
You then consult an appropriate meaning table, like the action tables, or maybe one of the elements tables to add some extra context, some inspiration.
Which table you choose is up to you.
Totally up to you. You might always use the action meaning tables for a broad range of results, or maybe there's a specific elements meaning table that fits really well with the specific prompt you're addressing, your call.
Then you roll twice on that table for a word pair.
Yep, get 2 words. And you interpret that word pair in relation to the prompt category you're working on.
And the goal of that interpretation
is to fashion the original general prompt category into a final, more specific question that you then answer.
And that answer becomes your journal entry for that part of the scene.
Exactly. You write your journal entry describing the events and your PC's actions, thoughts, feelings in response to that specific question.
Can we use the Scientist Explorer example again?
Sure. Let's say they're addressing their first prompt category. What troubles do I encounter?
Okay.
The player rolls on the action meaning tables and gets energize and obscurity.
Energize and obscurity. Okay. How do they interpret that?
They need to interpret what that means in the context of trouble and fashion it into a final question. In this case, the player interprets the words to mean an unknown energy source is detected somewhere nearby on the planet.
Ah, interesting. So the final question becomes
something like, your instruments detect a mysterious energy source out in the jungle. What is it?
Nice and specific. And the journal entry follows.
Right. The entry then blossoms from there. Maybe detailing the PC naming the planet Franklin after their dog, adding personal flavor.
Huh. Love it.
Describing the anomalous energy signature being ground-based and intermittent, detailing a failed search for its source, and maybe the PC resolving to move faster next time they detect it.
It shows how a simple prompt, combined with just a couple of random words, can spark a full narrative exploration. Allows for those personal touches and character voice.
Precisely. The narrative becomes a co-creation between you and the system's random input. You do this for each of your prompt categories in an expected scene.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about the altered scene? You roll equal or less than CF, and it's odd.
Right. In an altered scene, you'll largely follow the same procedure as an expected scene, working your way through your prompt categories, modifying them with meaning table words, writing your answers.
But there's an additional wrinkle.
Yes, the wrinkle is a random event. You generate a random event right at the beginning of the scene.
Okay, like a standard mythic random event, focus plus meaning tables.
Exactly. Then you interpret that random event into a new prompt.
A completely new question based on the event.
Yep, and this new prompt replaces one of your existing prompt categories for this scene only.
Ah, which one does it replace?
You choose which prompt category it replaces. The advice is to pick one that is similar to the event in some way. For instance, if the random event is clearly a dangerous situation, you might have it replace your "What troubles do I encounter?" category.
Okay, makes sense thematically.
This new prompt you create should represent some kind of challenge for the player character, even if it's technically something good that just brings its own complications.
And here's the key difference you mentioned.
Yes. An altered scene requires the expenditure of one resource point automatically.
Ouch. So you just reduce your resource points by one?
Yep. If you're using detailed resources, you choose which specific resource you lose.
And you have to justify that loss narratively.
Exactly. When you answer that new prompt based on the random event, you'll have to work in how and why it cost you the resource it did. Makes the setback feel narratively significant and deeply integrated into the story.
Let's use the Scientist Explorer example for this too.
Okay. Player rolls for an altered scene. They generate a random event focus, NPC action.
Okay. Who's the NPC?
They choose planet. Remember, the planet itself is on their characters list.
Right.
Then they roll Transform and Chaos on the action meeting tables.
Transform and Chaos applied to the planet acting. Sounds bad.
The player interprets this as a massive storm hitting high winds, lots of strange lightning.
Yep.
So powerful it actually tips the PC's small shelter, their makeshift research station, completely over.
Whoa, okay, that's definitely trouble.
So the player decides, this random event replaces the first prompt of "What troubles do I encounter?" since it certainly fits.
And the new prompt becomes
Something like, what happens when a terrible storm passes through?
And they lose a resource.
Yes. The player then details the doozy of a storm in their journal, the strange purple energy maybe, how it turned their station over like a giant kicking a shoebox, making everything inside a mess.
And the resource loss.
One of the player's listed resources was Research Station. They removed this as the spent resource, representing the significant damage it sustained in the storm.
That makes perfect sense. So apart from that one replaced prompt and the resource cost, the rest of the altered scene is the same as an expected scene. You answer the other prompts as usual.
Exactly. You still go through your remaining standard prompt categories for that scene, adding context with meaning words and answering them. But that initial event and resource loss sets a different tone for the scene.
Okay, that's clear. Now the interrupt scene. Roll equal or less than CF and it's even. This provides something unexpected.
Totally unexpected. You do not follow the procedure of answering your standard prompt categories here at all.
Ah, okay. So what do?
You generate a single random event, just like at the start of an altered scene.
Right.
But then you fashion this random event into the scene's only prompt. That's it. Just one question for the entire scene based purely on that random event.
And unlike altered scenes, this new prompt doesn't have to replace an existing category.
Correct. It doesn't replace anything because you're not using your standard prompts anyway.
Yeah.
It could be something entirely new and different, offering genuine narrative surprises and potentially diverting the story in completely unforeseen directions.
The source gives some conceptual examples.
Yeah, to show how unique interrupt scenes can be. For a shipwreck survivor, an interrupt scene might be about having an epiphany about life because all the solitude has given them a new perspective.
Not about survival at all.
Nope. Or maybe it's about finding some incredible natural wonder on the island, a hidden waterfall, a unique ecosystem that doesn't have anything to do with survival or escape. It's just interesting, adds texture to the world.
And for our scientist PC.
An example random event given is move away from a thread, specifically the Discover Helpful Resources thread, combined with the words increase and strength.
Okay, moving away from finding resources, increasing strength. How's that interpreted?
It could lead to the single prompt. How do I deal with ever-increasing chaotic weather?
Ah, so the storm wasn't a one-off.
Maybe not. It forces the PC to adapt to an evolving long-term challenge, perhaps journaling about needing to travel during storms now to gather essential resources because safe periods are too short. It keeps the story dynamic and unpredictable.
When it comes to making these new prompts from random events, whether for altered or interrupt scenes, is there any advice?
Yeah, the advice is basically to translate the event into an engaging question for you. For instance, if you interpreted a random event to mean your PC is attacked by a wild animal, you could phrase the prompt simply as, what do I do when I get attacked suddenly by a beast?
Direct and action-oriented.
Or, If you want more tension and maybe less direct confrontation immediately, you might turn it into, I discover wild animal tracks in the forest, indicating a predator is near. How do I respond to this? Build suspense.
So the key is framing it in a way that would be the most interesting and entertaining for you to answer.
Exactly. It's about maximizing your own creative engagement.
And then, to wrap up any type of scene, expected, altered, or interrupt, there's the end of scene bookkeeping.
Right. Much the same as in standard mythic play, keeps everything tidy.
What does that involve?
You consider the events of the scene you just played. Did any new potential plot lines emerge? Add them to the threads list. Did any new significant characters or concepts appear? Add them to the characters list.
And you can add more instances of existing elements if they were important.
Yep, if something on a list was particularly prominent in the scene, you can add another instance of it, up to a maximum of 3 entries for the same element. Gives it more weight in future random events.
And remove things that no longer apply.
Right. If a thread was resolved or a character left the story or became irrelevant, you can remove them from the lists.
But the goal thread is special.
Yes. Your main goal thread can't be removed until the adventure concludes. It's always there.
And finally, adjust the chaos factor.
Yep. Based on the scene type you just finished. Expected means CF goes up by 1. Altered or interrupt means CF goes down by 1. Then you're ready for the next scene. Smooth transition.
Okay, so we've explored the building blocks of scenes: expected, altered, interrupt. Now let's talk about the driving force of your story. Making actual progress.
Goal checks.
Goal checks, exactly. Which are key to gaining resources. And also, the flip side, the implications of consequences, which define what happens when things go wrong and you lose resources.
This is where your strategic decisions really come into play during a scene.
So how does a goal check work?
At any point during a scene, while you're answering one of the prompts, whether it's a standard one or one from a random event, if you think your player character has genuinely made progress toward achieving the overall goal, you can choose to make a goal check.
And this is basically a fate question.
Exactly. It's a fate question phrased as simply as, did I make progress toward the goal?
And you assign odds to this question based on the current situation.
Yep. Based on the context of the scene you're in.
Yeah.
How likely does it feel that what just happened actually moved you closer to the finish line? If your goal is finding your mentor and you just found their hidden diary, maybe the odds are likely or very likely. If you just learned a minor unrelated fact, maybe it's unlikely or 50-50 at best.
Is there a limit?
Yes. A crucial limitation. You can only make 1 goal check per scene, max.
Okay, so you have to choose your moment carefully.
Very carefully.
Understanding the results and their implications seems really key here for managing your progress.
Absolutely. Let's break them down. If you roll the fate question and get a yes,
Simple yes.
you gain +1 to your resources. If you're abstracting resource points, you just add 1 to the total. Easy.
And if you're listing individual resources,
you also figure out what that new resource is based on what happened in the scene, and you write it down. Remember, resources can be anything: material goods, information, an important contact, even a crucial insight. Anything that helps you get closer to your goal.
Okay, makes sense. What about an exceptional yes?
Ah, that's like hitting the jackpot. You get a +2 bonus to your resources. Double progress.
And if listing resources individually,
you can either list the same resource twice, maybe representing a deeper understanding or a larger quantity, or you could break it down into 2 separate but related new resources.
But there's more to an exceptional yes.
Yes. Crucially, this result also means you have an additional prompt you must answer in this scene.
Another prompt. What is it?
The prompt is simply, why is this important? You need to journal about why this breakthrough was so significant, really underlining its impact.
Can we use the scientist explorer example again for this? It seems perfect.
Absolutely. The article is a great one. Our scientist explorer finally tracks down the source of that mysterious energy signature they detected earlier. It leads them to an underground alien installation.
Ooh, exciting.
Inside, they find complex machinery. Based on their observations, the PC concludes this machinery might actually control the planet's storms.
That sounds incredibly important for the goal of determining if the planet is safe for colonization.
Exactly. So the player decides, this is definitely worth a goal check, and gives it odds of very likely.
And they roll.
Exceptional.
Yes.
So they add +2 to resources, maybe listing storm controlling machinery twice on their detailed list.
And the extra prompt. Why is this important?
Right. This allows the PC to journal excitedly about discovering the machinery not only exists, but controls the planet's storms. Maybe they speculate it could be harnessed for energy, making colonization suddenly seem much more viable. It's a truly major find that fundamentally shifts the narrative.
That's fantastic. Okay, now for the less happy results, what about a plain no?
A simple no means nothing meaningful was gained in terms of the goal. No adjustment to your resources. You thought it might be progress, but it wasn't significant enough. Move on.
But an exceptional no, that sounds bad.
It is. It means something has gone terribly wrong. What you thought was progress toward the goal has actually turned out to be a mistake, a setback, or led to a negative consequence.
So you lose resources.
Yes, you reduce resources by megajoule 1. And, similar to the exceptional, yes, you must answer an additional prompt.
Which is?
What happened?
Yeah.
You need to journal about how things went wrong, what the mistake was, or what the negative consequence is.
And if you're listing resources individually,
you choose one to lose. And that choice really helps you interpret the negative event narratively. What specific piece of progress did you just lose or undermine?
The scientist explorer provides a stark example here too, right? Exploring ruins.
Yep. They're exploring a ruined temple, hoping some ancient inscriptions might offer clues about how to operate the storm machinery they found.
Seems like a long shot, maybe.
Yeah, the player feels it's risky, but potentially useful, so they risk a goal check at unlikely odds.
And
they get an exceptional no.
So they lose a resource.
Yes, they have to reduce resources by 1. The player decides to remove one of the 2 storm-controlling machinery elements they gained earlier.
And the prompt, what happened? How does that play out?
It leads to journaling about how a large statue in the temple wasn't a statue at all. It turns out to be an ancient robot sentinel which suddenly comes alive.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it attacks, or just its activation destabilizes the crumbling building, making it much harder or more dangerous to access the weather machinery or the inscriptions they were hoping for.
That vividly shows how a setback can transform the narrative, adding new challenges and deepening the mystery. It's not just losing a point, it's a story event.
Exactly. And one small note. If a random event happens to be generated during a goal check roll, it's like rolling doubles on the D10s for the fake question, you just ignore it.
Oh, okay. The focus remains squarely on the success or failure of your progress towards the goal in that moment.
Right. So all of this, the potential games, the risk of setbacks, means that making a goal check is really a strategic decision. You have to weigh the risk.
It's not something you do blindly every time you think maybe you made progress?
Definitely not. You have to assess if the odds you came up with seem worth the risk. The source encourages you to consider factors like, how many resource points do you currently have? How close are you to hitting 0?
What kind of game are you playing? Is failure a real possibility based on your consequences?
Right. And maybe, how good might the odds be in later scenes? Is it better to wait for a surer bet?
But goal checks are the primary way to gain resources.
They are. So waiting too long means no immediate progress, and you always risk losing resources just through altered scenes anyway. So the article suggests it's often worth the risk, despite the potential for that dreaded exceptional no. Adds excitement.
That tension can be further enhanced, or perhaps mitigated, by your choice of consequences.
Ah yes, the optional rules for hitting rock bottom.
These define what happens when your resource points fall to 0, which can happen through those altered scenes, exceptional curos, no results on goal checks, or even certain random events like move away from a thread.
Right. And it's important to note, resources cannot fall below 0.
So if you're already at 0 and you're forced to lose another resource point,
resources just stay at 0, but it triggers another consequence event. So you can get hit multiple times if things go really badly.
Oof, okay. Your choice of consequence really sets the tone, doesn't it?
Hugely.
Yeah.
It significantly impacts the game's feel, ranging from relaxed exploration where failure isn't really on the table, to high tension where the possibility of definitive failure looms over every decision. It's a powerful tool for customizing your experience.
So what are the different types of consequences offered?
The simplest option is none.
None. So nothing happens.
Pretty much. If resources hit 0, nothing special happens. You just continue playing. This is best suited for games with a relaxed focus, where you are purely interested in the journey toward the goal, not in the possibility of failing to reach it.
So it's all about how your PC accomplishes the goal, which they will inevitably do, purely exploratory.
Exactly. Then there's negative narrative.
Okay, what does that involve?
When resources hit 0 with this consequence, you generate a new prompt for the current scene. You can roll for inspiration on an appropriate meaning table if you like. And the key is, whatever happens as a result of answering this prompt, it's narratively bad for your character.
But the adventure continues.
Yes, it doesn't mean the adventure is over, but it's a significant negative experience. For instance, in that journaling adventure about the wizard trying to discover immortality, a negative narrative consequence could be a sequence where they were experimenting with potions, it exploded, almost killed them, maybe scarred them, taught them a harsh lesson about the dangers of their craft. A major setback, but they lived to try again.
Okay, I see. Then there's Restart.
Yes, Restart provides a push-forward mechanism, especially if your adventure seems to be slowing down or you feel like you've hit a narrative dead end.
How does it work?
When you reach 0 resources, they automatically jump back up to your starting value, typically 2 points, like getting a second wind.
Oh, interesting.
You still generate a new prompt to represent what happened, again using meaning tables for inspiration if needed. But the idea here is that setbacks sometimes open new doors and opportunities.
So it frames the failure as a pivot point.
Exactly. Going back to the wizard example, if the adventure was using Restart as its consequence, that potion explosion, instead of almost killing them,
might do something else?
It might accidentally create a new, unexpectedly useful magical compound. Maybe it teaches the wizard the value of patience. They gain new resources reflective of this, like important magical compound, and maybe even lesson learned, slow and steady wins the race.
That's a fantastic way to keep the narrative moving forward, despite a major setback, turning it into a new opportunity. Very clever.
It keeps the momentum going. And finally, the most high-stakes option, failure.
Failure. Sounds definitive.
It is. This consequence is for games where you actively desire tension and the possibility of losing, where the stakes feel real.
So if resources hit 0 with this rule,
the adventure is over without achieving the goal. Full stop. You failed.
Wow. What happens then?
You generate one final prompt to write about, showing how this failure ultimately came about. Again, you can use meaning cable inspiration if needed.
So, for our wizard example under the failure consequence,
maybe the potion experiment explodes and does kill the wizard this time. The very last entry in the journal might be written by the wizard's surviving apprentice, describing the tragic end.
A definitive, often dramatic, and potentially downbeat conclusion, that truly ups the stakes.
Absolutely. It makes every resource point feel precious.
Now, if you've really embraced solo journaling and you find yourself wanting maybe a little more complexity, perhaps even to gamify it a bit further.
For those who like tinkering with systems.
Right. You can consider modifying the experience with advanced concepts like resource classes.
This optional rule definitely adds a layer. It gamifies the system by dividing resources into separate, distinct categories, instead of having just one single general pool.
Okay, give me an example.
Our planetary explorer, for instance, might decide to use resource classes of survival and knowledge.
Instead of just resources.
Right. Any resource acquired during the adventure would then have to fit logically into one of those two categories.
And you set limits for each class.
Yes. You choose at the beginning how many maximum points are allowed in each class. For instance, maybe survival could have a maximum of 3 points and knowledge maxes out at 4 points.
And together they add up to the overall goal total, like 7 in this case.
Exactly. 3 survival plus 4 knowledge is 7 total resources needed to achieve the goal.
This seems like it would open up some additional role-playing possibilities, but also impact play quite a bit.
Oh, significantly. It makes the game inherently more challenging because any acquired resources now have to fit into specific, predefined classes.
And if a resource class is already full,
then you cannot add more points to it, even if a great opportunity arises that clearly fits that category. It's full.
Ouch. That forces you into strategic choices about what kind of progress you prioritize, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This creates, as the article says, new avenues of player options and adventure opportunity. It deepens the decision-making and adds a definite layer of resource management strategy.
Does the system introduce any special rules specifically for these resource classes to help manage them or add flavor?
Yes, a few interesting ones. One is called non-replenishable.
Non-replenishable. Sounds ominous.
It is. This type of resource class starts with a certain value, maybe 1 or 2, or even higher, but it can only go down. You can never gain points in it.
Whoa. What's the purpose of that?
It's used to create a higher degree of tension, a built-in countdown timer. For instance, in a haunted house adventure, maybe you have a survival class you need to fill, but also a doom class that's non-replenishable, starting at 4.
And whenever you lose a resource?
It comes out of the doom class first. If doom ever reaches 0, maybe the adventure immediately ends in a failure. Consequence, the ghosts get you, or whatever.
Yikes. That adds a constant looming threat, a ticking clock right there in your resources.
Definitely raises the stakes. Another special rule is spend one to get one.
Spend one to get one. How does that work?
In any scene, you can choose to voluntarily sacrifice a resource point from one class.
Just give it up.
Yep. In order to generate a new prompt specifically designed to be highly likely to grant a resource in another class.
So it's a way to rebalance if one class is full and another is empty.
Exactly. It's a strategic way to try and balance your resource classes. You're effectively trading one type of progress you might not need right now for a chance at progress you do need.
But it's a gamble.
It's definitely a gamble. Even if you come up with a prompt that seems likely to give you good odds on a goal check for the desired class, you don't know for sure if it'll succeed. You might fail the check, or even roll an exceptional no and lose another point. It's a calculated risk.
Okay. And one more special rule.
Random resource loss. This one's simple but impactful. When you are forced to lose a resource point, like in an altered scene, or from an exceptional no, instead of choosing which class loses the point,
you roll for it.
You can choose to randomly determine which resource class the point comes out of. If you're using two different resource classes, you can just roll a d10. 1 to 5 means it comes from the first class, 6-10 from the second.
That adds unpredictability.
Totally. It forces adaptation, making each setback potentially more impactful or surprising, because you might lose progress in an area you felt was secure. Truly tests your ability to pivot.
Okay, stepping back from the specific mechanics for a moment, the article also touches on a broader concept, a matter of time.
Right, thinking about the overall scope and feel of the adventure.
It suggests viewing these solo journaling endeavors more as experiences that unfold over a potentially prolonged period, rather than just short, isolated adventures.
Yeah, it's about chronicling the entire journey, the development and discovery over time, not just a single quest.
And this concept can be deeply enhanced through the found journal concept.
I love this idea. You can imagine the journal you're actually writing as a real in-game artifact.
Like what?
Like the logbook of a starship captain, the data records recovered from a derelict vessel, messages found washed up in a bottle from a lost castaway, or maybe the dusty personal diary of a slightly mad wizard found in an attic.
That adds tremendous thematic depth. It ties your real-world activity of journaling directly into the narrative world itself.
Exactly. It makes it feel like you're creating a historical document within the game world, something that could be discovered by future generations within that setting.
Right.
Really immersive.
And to give your narrative a concrete sense of scope, you can define timescales.
Right. Each scene in your journey can be considered to encapsulate a specific amount of time passing within the game world.
So you might decide each scene represents
maybe a week or a month or even just a day, depending on the pace you want.
Okay.
You don't have to stick to it rigidly for every single scene, but having a general idea helps.
Knowing that time is passing, and roughly how much, helps build context and provides a sense of passage.
Absolutely. By the time your adventure concludes, the game might have covered several days, months, years, or who knows, maybe even centuries if you're playing an immortal sorcerer. It leaves this comprehensive record of your PC's journey through time.
Okay, to really bring this entire system to life and see how all these pieces fit together, let's dive into that fantastic case study provided in the source material, The Queen of Deadville.
Ah, yes, Cassie's story. It's a wonderfully quirky, somewhat humorous adventure that showcases all these mechanics in action.
And it really demonstrates how they build a compelling narrative over time. We'll focus on key moments that demonstrate the system, rather than a full scene-by-scene replay.
Good plan. So the initial setup for the Queen of Deadville is essential to understand.
Who is the player character?
The PC is Cassie, a newly appointed zombie queen. How cool is that?
Zombie queen! Okay, love it already. What's the premise?
The premise is, Deadville is a haven for wayward undead as they await moving on. You are its leader and queen, charged with helping the residents with their problems and maintaining order.
So, afterlife bureaucracy and problem solving. Got it. What's her goal?
Her goal is wonderfully specific and drives the core narrative. Help Anktu finally move on to the other.
Anktu.
Anktu is a mummy. He's the previous ruler of Deadville, Cassie's friend, and the oldest resident, having been apparently stuck there for 3,000 years.
3,000 years. Okay, that's a worthy goal. What about consequences?
For consequences, the player chose Restart.
The one where resources jump back up if they hit 0.
Exactly. This was chosen specifically to aim for a lighter, more humorous adventure tone. It means setbacks can happen, but true failure isn't really on the table, which fits the whimsical setting perfectly.
Smart choice. And her prompt categories, what does she focus on each scene?
The chosen prompt categories really set the stage for Cassie's role and the adventure's tone. They are, what problem needs solving? What do I learn about Ankh 2? And who is the Deadville Resident of the Month?
Resident of the Month. I love that. Chosen just for fun.
Seems like it. Yeah. It highlights character building and the community focus of the adventure, adding a delightful, whimsical element right into the core mechanics.
Brilliant. And her starting resources.
She starts with 2 detailed resources. Yeah. First, Deadville Manor, which serves as Cassie's home and the center of Deadville government.
Okay.
And second, the well, described as a magical, sometimes oracle water, well located somewhere in the woods nearby.
A magic well. Nice. And the time scale.
Each scene is set to roughly cover about 1 month of in-game time. Gives it a nice pace.
Okay, let's walk through some key highlights from her scene-by-scene breakdown, starting with the very first scene. What type was it?
It was an expected scene. So the chaos factor increases from the starting 5 up to 6 at the end of the scene.
And she answers her 3 prompts. What happens with the first one? What problem needs solving?
The player rolls on a meeting table, maybe action, and gets free and bureaucracy.
Free and bureaucracy? How's that a problem?
The interpretation is delightful. Cassie, our newly appointed zombie queen, is already feeling overwhelmed by unexpected paperwork in the netherworld.
Even in the afterlife.
Right. Her journal entry details her shock at the sheer volume of documents and how she finds solace by taking a walk among her community, reminding herself the job is about them, not the endless forms. It immediately establishes her character and the humorous tone.
Perfect. Prompt 2. What we learned about Ankh 2?
Rolling attained the leadership. The interpretation reveals that Ankh 2 became king of Deadville simply because he was a real king back in his living life. This natural authority just led others to follow him when they arrived in Deadville. Adds to his backstory.
Okay. And prompt 3. Who is the Deadville Resident of the Month?
Using maybe the undead descriptors table, the role is control and possessions.
Yeah.
This leads to meeting Zaddle. Zaddle is an animated broom, apparently inhabited by the spirit of a dead servant, who tirelessly sweeps and cleans the town square. Cassie holds a little ceremony for Zaddle, who seems quite pleased, kind of swishing back and forth happily.
An animated broom, this is great, and the bookkeeping for the scene.
Zaddle is added to the characters list, naturally, and an instance of Deadville community is also added to the characters list, reflecting the focus on the residents in this scene. CF goes up to 6.
Okay, scene 1 sets the stage nicely. What about scene 2?
Scene 2 is an interrupt scene, immediately altering the narrative flow. The roll must have been even and equalist than CF6, so the chaos factor will decrease from 6 down to 5 at the end.
An interrupt means only one prompt, based on a random event.
Exactly. The random event generated is NPC positive, focusing on the Deadville community, combined with the meaning words release and cooperation.
Release and cooperation, positive for the community. What's the prompt?
It's interpreted into the scene's only prompt. Someone moved on. Who was it?
Someone finally achieved their goal and went to the other.
Yep. The journal entry focuses on Carol, a poltergeist, who was apparently known for occasional spectral rages, maybe rolling passive and powers for description. She's finally moved on.
There's a happy yet sad occasion for the community.
Exactly. Cassie details the unexpected but ultimately welcome event of Carol's departure, complete with the described telltale burst of light. It's a moment of success for Deadville, even if tinged with farewell.
And the bookkeeping.
It just adds another instance of Deadville community to the characters list, showing their continued importance. And CF drops to 5.
Okay, scene 3.
Scene 3 is an altered scene. The roll must have been odd and equalist than CF5. So this brings the chaos factor down again from 5 to 4. And altered means a random event replaces one prompt and costs a resource.
Right. What's the random event?
NPC action, again focusing on the Deadville community, plus the words lure and safety.
Lure and safety, NPC action. How's that interpreted?
Into the prompt. A resident is summoned by a spell. How do you prevent them from leaving? This clearly represents a problem, so the player decides it replaces the original what problem needs solving prompt for this scene.
And the crucial resource loss.
Yes. As an altered scene, the player loses 1 resource point. They choose to remove the well from their list.
Ooh, the magic well. Okay, how does the journal entry justify that?
In her entry for this replaced prompt, Cassie details how some reckless sorcerer in the natural world tried to dangerously summon a Deadville resident, maybe a vampire, rolling environment and pale for description, during the day.
Very dangerous for a vampire.
Totally. Cassie had to make a quick trip to find that fickle well, and basically yelled at it for an answer, demanding it reveal the vampire's location instantly.
Huh.
She saves the vampire, but apparently hurting the well's feelings in the process.
That neatly explains the loss of the well as a helpful resource. It's sulking now.
Exactly. It's a great example of how resource loss isn't just a number. It becomes a narrative turning point, forcing Cassie to make a tough choice with consequences.
So that was the first replaced prompt. What about the second prompt for Scene 3? What do I learn about Ankh 2?
Rolling reward in group leads to a significant revelation. Early on in Ankh 2's long reign, he apparently showed favoritism towards undead, who were once part of his specific kingdom back in the natural world.
Playing favorites.
Yeah, and this caused much friction and resentment among the other Deadville residents back then. Cassie starts to suspect that this past behavior, maybe unresolved guilt about it, might be part of what's holding Ankh 2 back from moving on.
This sounds like progress towards the goal. Does she make a goal check?
She does. Cassie makes a goal check here, figuring this is important info. She gives it likely odds for the question, did I make progress toward the goal? She gets it, yes. So she gains +1 resource, immediately compensating for the loss of the well. She lists her new resource as Ankh 2's troubled past. Progress often comes hand in hand with new revelations.
Excellent. And the third prompt for Scene 3, who is the Deadville resident of the month?
Rolling glad and possessive may be tied to someone who helped save the vampire. This leads to meeting Jasmine.
Jasmine
the werewolf. Cassie journals about how Jasmine, who apparently has a thing for the vampire she helped save, used her keen werewolf scent to track the vampire down quickly when they were being summoned, playing an instrumental role. So Jasmine gets the honor this month.
A werewolf with a crush on a vampire, classic.
Okay, bookkeeping for Scene 3.
The well resource is lost. Ankh 2's troubled past, resources gained, lists are updated, the vampire gets added, Jasmine the werewolf gets added, and a new element, the council, presumably Deadville's governing body, is introduced, reflecting new narrative opportunities and relationships. And the chaos factor drops to 4, indicating a slightly more unpredictable turn potentially coming up.
Okay, the narrative then summarizes some later adventure developments, showing how the story grows organically from these scenes.
Right. It mentions Cassie's investigations eventually lead her to a place called the Cave of Sorrows.
Sounds ominous. It was a secret place where Ankh 2, back in his more ambitious days, had amassed an army composed of undead, specifically from his former kingdom.
Tying back to the favoritism, what else did she find?
She discovers the cave has a hidden portal connecting directly to the natural world, which Ankh 2 had apparently intended to use for conquest.
Whoa, so he wasn't always just a benevolent mummy king.
Apparently not. Cassie learned that his invasion plan was ultimately stopped by heroes in the natural world, led by a paladin named Enol, who managed to seal the portal. Big backstory reveal.
This leads Cassie on a mission.
Yes, she undertakes a dangerous mission into the natural world herself, eventually meets Rosic, who turns out to be Enol's descendant, and acquires the Dread Journal, Ankh 2's personal tome, long reputed to contain dark magic.
The Dread Journal. Sounds crucial. This shows how quickly the story can gain surprising depth and scope from just following the prompts and interpretations.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the second-to-last scene described in the adventure example.
What type of scene is it?
It's an expected scene. The chaos factor is currently at 5, so it will increase to 6 at the end. And crucially, Cassie's resources are now at 6, just one shy of her goal of 7.
So close. Okay, prompt 1. How do you handle a dispute over investment and communicating with the natural world? Sounds like council business.
Yep. Cassie has to handle an argument during a council meeting. They're debating funding for the Great Scry Mirror, which they apparently use for recruiting newly deceased individuals into Deadville.
Recruiting, okay. How does she handle it?
She successfully resolves the dispute, managing to keep the mirror funded and operational. Shows her growing leadership and problem-solving skills as queen.
Nice. Now, the second prompt, presumably about Ankh 2, given the goal.
Yes. You translate the journal, the Dread Journal she acquired. How does it explain how Ankh 2 ended his campaign of terror? This is the big one.
What does she roll?
She rolls close and completion.
Close and completion. Yeah. Sounds promising.
The player interprets this to mean Cassie finally successfully translates the Dread Journal. And the contents are shocking, but not in the way people thought.
How so?
The journal reveals Ankh 2's profound remorse over his past actions. The supposed dark spells detailed inside were actually records of his attempts at making reparations for the damage he caused during his attempted conquest.
Wow. So he felt incredibly guilty.
Deeply guilty. Cassie realizes this, his enduring, perhaps secret, regret, and his belief that he failed to make amends is what's truly holding him back from being able to move on. It wasn't lack of power, but unresolved guilt.
This feels like the final piece of the puzzle. Time for a goal check.
Absolutely. This vital discovery leads Cassie to make her final goal check, setting the odds at nearly certain.
And Mythic says?
Mythic returns away.
Yes. Cassie gains her 7th and final resource point. She's achieved her objective, not through magic or force, but through understanding and empathy, unlocked by following the journal prompts.
Fantastic. So with the goal 7 resources met, what happens next?
The next scene is automatically the conclusion scene. No need to roll for scene type.
And it has only one prompt. Just one. How does the adventure end? The player rolls create and plot on a meaning table, just for a little inspiration.
Create and plot.
So,
how do they interpret that for the ending?
They interpret it into a more specific final prompt. You put on a play describing Angtu's adventures in Undeath. How does this help him move on?
A play? That's brilliant. How does Cassie's final journal entry describe it?
Cassie's final entry describes her staging a play for the Deadville Halloween celebration. The play details everything she learned about Angtu's past, his ambition, his invasion, but critically, it focuses on his secret, remorseful attempts at reparations and highlights the positive impact those actions actually had on the natural world over the centuries, effects he never knew about because he was stuck in Deadville.
So he gets to see the good that came from his efforts, despite his guilt.
Exactly. Angtu is in the audience, watching. He's shocked at first, then deeply sad as his past is laid bare, but then his eyes light up as the play reveals the long-term positive outcomes of his reparations. As the play concludes, summarizing how well parts of the natural world were actually doing, thanks to Angtu's ancient, guilt-ridden efforts, his leathery mummy lips curl into a smile. And with a described big burst of light, he finally moves on to the other.
Oh, wow.
Cassie's final line in the journal, a perfect Halloween. A truly satisfying, character-driven conclusion achieved entirely through the system's mechanics and the player's creative interpretations.
That's a wonderful example. And just as a final insight before we wrap up this section, the source makes a point about how listed resources might change or become obsolete during play.
Right. It uses the scientist's example. They might initially list energy signature as a resource when they first detect the weird phenomena. But later, after investigation, that understanding evolves and it becomes storm-controlling machinery. In a sense, they're the same concept, just more refined.
So what happens to the original energy signature resource on the list? Does it get replaced?
No, the point is that the original obsolete resource still remains on the list because it represents a step along the way. It highlights the journey of discovery and the progression of understanding, not just the final destination.
That makes sense. It's part of the history of the investigation.
Exactly. And if later on such a supplanted older resource were to be eliminated due to an altered scene or an exceptional, no.
You don't just ignore it because it's obsolete.
No. You can interpret that loss creatively. Perhaps it means the newer, more detailed resource, storm-controlling machinery, is now losing power, facing unexpected interference. Or maybe the original, broader energy signature is fluctuating wildly again, casting doubt on the machinery theory.
So it ensures that every narrative twist remains meaningful, and every step of your documented journey matters, even the earlier, less refined steps.
Precisely. It keeps the whole history of your investigation relevant.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive into solo journaling games and this Mythic system adaptation. It really feels like we've unpacked a lot.
We really have. It's fascinating stuff.
We've seen how just a few core principles, starting with that clear premise and goal, using flexible, dynamic prompt categories that you tailor yourself.
The dynamic scenes, expected, altered, interrupt, keeping things unpredictable.
Those strategic goal checks where you weigh the risks.
And the optional consequences that let you set the stakes.
How all these elements can weave together to create a profoundly personal and engaging narrative.
It's really clear that this system isn't just about rolling dice, is it?
Not at all. It's about nurturing your own creativity and, in a way, discovering a story as you tell it, one journal entry at a time.
And for you listening, this isn't just a game in the traditional sense. It feels like a genuinely powerful tool for self-guided storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. Whether you're looking to maybe develop a really detailed character history for another game,
or explore a fantastical setting just for yourself,
chronicle a personal project, maybe even a real-life journey or challenge,
or simply practice creative writing in a structured yet freeing way.
Solo journaling, especially with this Mythic framework, offers an almost unparalleled level of freedom and discovery.
It truly embodies that joy of discovery, doesn't it? And the satisfaction of building something unique entirely from your own imagination. Peace, by carefully interpreted piece.
So as you consider the vast possibilities of this system, maybe ask yourself, what forgotten journal would you want to discover?
Ooh, good question.
Or perhaps more excitingly, what journal would you want to create? Chronicling a journey through the unexpected twists and turns of your own making.
What untold story waiting for you to unfold it lies within your own imagination right now?
Ready to be brought to life, one prompt, one interpretation, one journal entry at a time.
This deep dive has hopefully shown you the map, given you the tools.
Now go forth and chart your own adventure.
You know that feeling when you're just swimming in information, right? Trying to grab the important bits, but you still feel like you're missing the real core of it.
Yeah, that aha moment that just doesn't quite click.
Exactly. Well, today we're diving into something really fascinating. The world of solo journaling games. Specifically, how the Mythic role-playing system can be adapted for this pretty unique style of play. We're using Mythic Magazine Volume 30 as our guide here. It lays out a really interesting path for, well, structured creativity.
And what's really neat, I think, is how it takes the system, which was, originally built to be like a game master for groups.
Right.
And it flips it into this tool for a totally self-guided story. So our mission in this deep dive is really to unpack that. How does Mythic turn your own notes, your own ideas into a story that unfolds? And maybe, just maybe, why this could be your next big aha moment for telling your own stories.
Okay, let's unpack that straight away. How is solo journaling, especially using Mythic like this, different from, say, the usual way people use Mythic Solo with the Oracle? Or even group play? What's the core difference?
That's a really good question. And the source material zeroes in on this. See, with standard Mythic Solo, you're often asking like very specific questions, right? Is the door locked? What's the monster do?
Getting those concrete details.
Exactly. The system gives you answers, detail by detail. Solo journaling, though, it leans way more on these open-ended prompts. You're not really trying to generate every little random thing with a dice roll. It's more about asking yourself these bigger, maybe more evocative questions, and then you answer them. Through writing, it's focused on the narrative sweep, the big picture you're creating.
Okay. So it's less about the system telling you exactly what happens next, step by step, and more like it's nudging you to ask the right questions about your story, questions you then explore in writing.
Precisely. It's a subtle shift, but it's significant in terms of, like, agency. But here's the connection, the reason Mythic works so well for this. Both styles rely heavily on context and interpretation. That doesn't change. The basic loop is the same. You start with your context, everything that's happened so far that shapes your expectations. Then you interpret the prompts or the oracle answers in standard play to build more context, and that just feeds back in, It's this constant cycle.
Okay, so if we zoom out a bit, this means all the familiar Mythic tools, scenes, fake questions.
Big yes, no questions.
Random events popping up, your list of threads and characters, the chaos factor, all that stuff is still there. It's just tweaked.
Exactly. It's all still in play, just cleverly repurposed for this journaling style.
How so? Like, what are some of those tweaks?
Well, for instance, expected scenes, the ones you sort of plan for, they follow a specific formula you set up at the start. But altered and interrupt scenes, they take on these much more defined roles, often acting as challenges or unexpected turns. Even some results on the event focus table, the one that helps interpret random events, they have special meanings here, specifically to push the journaling aspect.
Interesting.
And the chaos factor. It functions differently. In standard Mythic, it often reflects how much control the character has. Here, it's more like a narrative pressure valve. It mainly works to help you reach your goal by shaking things up if the story gets a bit stuck.
Keeps it moving.
Right. Prevents stalling. And importantly, there is a clear endpoint. You decide when the adventure finishes based on reaching a specific goal, which gives it a nice sense of completion.
Okay, this sounds really compelling. So if someone listening is thinking, all right, I want to try this, where do they start? What's step one for building your own Mythic solo journal adventure?
First things first, you need your foundation, your premise and your goal.
Okay, premise. That's like the setup, who you are, what the world's like.
Exactly. It's your narrative starting point. It could be super simple, like you're a wizard trying to discover immortality. Or maybe something more specific, like our example from the source. You are a colonist on an alien world.
Right, like that example. Let's run with that, a colonist on Xylos, maybe.
Perfect. So the premise could be, you're a solo terraformer on the hostile moon Xylos, trying to make it habitable. Or Maybe you're stranded after a crash, part of a survey team, just trying to survive. It sets the scene.
And the goal is just what you're trying to achieve.
Yep, the main objective. It usually flows right out of the premise. If you're stranded, the goal might be signal for rescue or build a sustainable shelter.
And what's cool is you don't need complex stats for your character,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's just you just decide who you are.
Right. Your character is kind of woven into the world and the journaling itself. Who you are is your character sheet, in a way. And hey, if you're stuck, Mythic can help even there. You can use its fate questions or meaning tables, those random word pairs like action elements or character identity, to spark ideas for the premise and goal.
Huh, neat. Okay, so you have your premise, your goal. Say, establish a base on Xylos.
Yeah.
How do you track if you're actually getting anywhere?
That's where resources come in. Think of resources as an abstract way to measure your progress towards that goal.
Okay.
You usually start with 2 resource points. The objective is to reach a set number, typically 7, to successfully finish your adventure. And these points can represent anything, really. Abstract things, knowledge for a scientist, clues for a detective. For our colonist, maybe shelter integrity or food supply or map terrain.
And the source mentions you can keep it abstract, just number, or you can actually list out what those resources are.
Yes, exactly. Keeping it abstract is simpler, less bookkeeping. But listing them specifically, like writing down basic HAB unit and emergency rations as you're starting 2 resources for the colonist.
That adds more flavor, I bet.
It does. It makes losing or gaining a resource much more meaningful. If you lose the basic HAB unit resource, you know exactly what setback just occurred narratively. It really helps guide your interpretation and journaling later. The source even has a worksheet for this to keep track.
Makes sense. Okay, so resources track progress. Now, what actually drives the story forward scene by scene? It sounds like where the prompt categories come in.
Bingo. The prompt categories are like the engine of the whole thing. They're the heart of the experience.
So what are they exactly?
They're basically groups of open-ended writing questions that you create, and these form the structure for most of your scenes. They're your main tool for steering the narrative. You're essentially setting up the questions you want the story to answer.
How many do you need?
The suggestion is usually 3 or 4. No fewer than 2, probably no more than 6. The key thing is they need to be relevant to your premise and goal. And, maybe most importantly, they should be questions you actually find interesting to answer. For our Xylos colonist, prompts could be like, what wonders or dangers does the environment reveal? What scientific discoveries do I make? Or how does isolation affect me?
The way you word these prompts matters, right?
Yeah.
It affects the story.
Absolutely. It shapes the narrative possibilities, even the difficulty. Think about how did I overcome a challenge versus how did I make progress towards my goal? The first one allows for maybe more unexpected twists, while the second is more direct. And you're totally encouraged to change them later. If the story evolves, swap out a prompt, add a new one. It keeps things dynamic.
So it's very fluid. Okay, so you've got your premise, goal, resources, prompts. You're ready for a scene.
Yeah.
How does the chaos factor play into starting a scene? You said it was like a release valve.
Right. So once you're set up, you enter the scene cycle. The chaos factor starts at 5, kind of neutral. Here, it's less about player control and more about, well, narrative stability versus narrative change. It nudges things along, especially towards your goal, by introducing unexpected elements when needed.
How does it change?
It goes up by 1 after an expected scene when things go mostly as planned. It goes down by 1 after an altered or interrupt scene when things get shaken up. Stays between 1 and 9.
Got it. And determining the scene type, that's a roll.
Yep. Roll a d10 against the current chaos factor. If you roll higher than the chaos factor, you get an expected scene. This is your main storytelling mode.
And what happens in an expected scene?
You go through each of your prompt categories one by one. For each prompt, you roll on a meaning table like action or elements to get 2 words, maybe attack and ideas. You interpret those words in the context of your prompt to create a more specific question for yourself. Then you just write. You write the journal entry answering that question. This is where you really lean in and let your creativity flow.
So for the colonist, maybe the prompt is, what discovery do I make? You roll attack and ideas. You might interpret that as, while exploring, I find evidence of a previous expedition, but their logs detail a hostile idea plant that attacks intruders mentally. What do I do?
Exactly. That's the kind of creative leap it encourages.
Okay, and if you roll equal to or less than the chaos factor, that's when things get weird.
That's when the release valve kicks in. If the roll is equal or less and it's an odd number, you get an altered scene.
Altered scene, what's that involve?
It always starts with a random event. You interpret that event to create a new prompt. This new prompt replaces one of your existing categories. You pick one that feels similar. Crucially, this new prompt represents the challenge, and you lose 1 resource point.
Ouch. So it's a setback.
Definitely. The example in the source is great. A random event about a terrible storm leads to a new prompt like, how do I survive the hurricane force winds carrying at my shelter? This replaces your what environmental challenges prompt for now, and you might lose your shelter integrity resource. Then you journal about dealing with that.
Right. And if the roll is equal or less, but even.
That's an interrupt scene. These are different again. They also start with a random event, but the prompt you create from it doesn't replace anything. It's a single, standalone prompt for this scene only.
Ah, like a complete tangent.
Kind of. It introduces something totally new, unexpected. It can lead to big narrative shifts, sudden insights, epiphanies. For our colonist, maybe a random event like introduce a new NPC leads to the prompt. I discover ancient alien glyphs that seem to depict a warning about this moon. Who left them and what do they mean? It injects novelty.
Wow, okay. So through these scenes, you're writing, maybe drawing maps, making notes. It all goes in the journal.
Ideally, yes. Physical journal, digital file, whatever works. Everything you record becomes part of the context, enriching the adventure.
And you end up with this really cool artifact of your story at the end.
That's the beauty of it. It's your unique creation, a tangible record.
Okay, so the story is unfolding. Resources are maybe going up, maybe down. How do you actually check if you're making progress towards that final goal of 7 points?
That's the goal check. Simple mechanic, really. Anytime during a scene, but only once per scene, if you feel like your character did something that genuinely moves them closer to the overall goal.
Like the colonists getting a water purifier working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can make a goal check. You just phrase it as a fate question. Did I make progress toward the goal? Then you assign odds likely, 50-50, unlikely, based on what just happened in the scene.
And the results.
A yes is straightforward. Game plus 1 resource point. Progress. An exceptional yes is even better. You get plus 2 resources. But there's a little twist. You also have to answer an extra prompt. Why is this important? Makes you reflect on the significance of that breakthrough.
Oh, I like that. Forces you to deepen the narrative impact.
But then there's the exceptional no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. If you get an exceptional no, something went wrong, you actually lose 1 resource point, and you have to answer the prompt, what happened? So failure on a goal check can introduce new complications.
So even trying to make progress has risks. What about random events during the check?
Ignore them. The goal check is purely about whether you succeeded or failed at that specific attempt to progress.
Got it. Now, you mentioned tweaking things earlier. How much can you customize the difficulty or just the general feel of the game?
Quite a bit, actually. You can adjust the difficulty easily. Choosing prompt categories that are very goal-focused makes it easier to gain resources. Starting with more than 2 resources makes it easier, less makes it harder.
Or changing the target number. Need more than 7 for a longer game, less for shorter.
Exactly. Those are simple dials, but you can also tweak the tone, especially with what happens if your resources hit 0.
Right, the consequences. What are the options there?
You decide this at the start. You could choose none. If resources hit 0, oh well, the story just continues, maybe with narrative flavor describing the lack, but no mechanical penalty. Very relaxed. Or negative narrative. Something bad happens narratively when you hit 0, but you don't lose the game, you just face a new problem.
More challenging.
Then there's restart. If you hit 0, you jump back up to 2 resources, but you have to answer a prompt about how this setback actually created a new opportunity, kind of a narrative reset.
Interesting. Like hitting rock bottom forces innovation.
Sorta, yeah. And finally, there's failure. If you hit 0 resources with this option, the adventure ends. You didn't achieve the goal, and your final journal entry is about how and why it failed.
Wow, that really sets the stakes high from the beginning if you choose that.
It totally does. It makes resource management much more tense.
And what about those resource classes you mentioned? Getting more gamified?
Yeah, that's an optional layer for more complexity. Instead of 1 pool of points, you could have separate classes. For our colonist, maybe survival resources and discovery resources.
Okay, so like different tracks.
Right. Each could have its own max limit. You could have special rules like a non-replenishable class, maybe a sanity track that only goes down, adding pressure.
Ooh, Gart.
Or rules like spend 1 to get 1. Maybe spend a survival point like rations to get a bonus prompt for discovery like what clue did my hunger reveal? Adds tactical choices.
Or random loss. So you don't even choose which resource you lose.
Except random resource loss adds that chaotic element. These are all ways to tailor the experience to be more strategic or thematic if you want that.
Cool. Okay, so you're playing, journaling, tracking resources. How does it all end? When you know the story's finished?
It's very clear-cut. Your adventure reaches its planned conclusion when your total resource points equal or exceed your target, which is usually 7.
Simple as that. 7 points, you're done.
Well, almost. When you hit that target, the next scene automatically becomes a special conclusion scene. No chaos factor roll, no prompts from your categories.
So what happens in it?
You just answer one big final prompt. How does the adventure end? You use everything you've gained, all those resources, all the story you've written to craft that final entry, that resolution. Our colonist, hitting 7 base-established resources, might write about activating the final life support, watching the first alien sunrise through their habitat dome, maybe reflecting on the journey, the losses, the discoveries. It's the capstone.
A very defined, satisfying end. It really feels like the journey is the reward, but you get that final moment of closure, too. So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here for someone listening?
I think it shows how flexible a system like Mythic can be. It's not just one thing.
Right, it's a toolkit.
Exactly. And this solo journaling approach, it offers this really structured way to tap into your own creativity, to build a narrative that's deeply personal, whether you're already an RPG player, a writer, or just curious about new ways to tell stories. This is a fascinating option. It really highlights that engaging with ideas isn't just passive, It's about interpreting, building, making it your own, one journal entry at a time.
And you're left with something tangible, that record of your character's journey.
A personal artifact, yeah. Proof of your adventure.
Well, we hope this deep dive gave you maybe a new angle on gaming, on storytelling. Could this be the way you capture your next adventure, page by page?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into whatever sparks your curiosity.